Kia ora koutou, talofa lava, malo Liley, whakalofa lahi atu, kia orana, bula vinaka, talohani, and a very warm Pacific greetings to you all this evening. I start with expressing my utmost respect and gratitude to tangata whenua, the local iwi, Ngāti Whātua, as we gather on this, their ancestral land, their tūranga waiwai, this day. I acknowledge Leaupepe and our ancestors who are always present with us through time and space. I acknowledge our Māori and Pacific leaders, knowledge custodians who are also present here with us today. Whawhitai tele lava, I express gratitude for your presence and your ongoing support. I acknowledge our Matai leaders, Leaupepe, Pafitimai, Sala, Whaasaolala, Tagoilelagi-Leota, and others who are present. Whaatalofa atu i le mamalu ma le ao fia, ua whaatasi mai i le nei awhi ma tango fie. In the spirit of decolonising education, and in this particular space and time, I invite Leaupepe Pafitimai to open us with a lotu, and then pass the time over to Jeanne Teisina to introduce her nephew who will lead us in a hiva. Whawhitai.
Tau abatu le nei lo minga o le tusi o lo o iai ia manatu ia e mese lava tau whainga o nisi o le malu whaia o ngā Pasifika ina ia tā oso ai ia alo whanau ia maua sa inga o ngā whio le nei lo minga o le tusi mātou te talo le tua whamanuia mai unga e mātou nei pō ia maua se ai ai whasivisili ei lo miliona ngā tōtama. Nei mea uma le atua o mātou le atua i Sofra Yesu. Amen.
Amen. Over to you, Jeanne.
In the spirit of reconceptualising, I'd like to introduce Matapo. He's one of the first pioneer students at our preschool. And even though we don't see the benefits and the impact of what we do, as practitioners in early childhood centers, Tapo is 21 now. I would like to share the challenge that he has to invite the Spirit with us tonight. Malo.
Malo.
Eiki koe
I hope we're all feeling mawhana from that hiva. Thank you very much. All right. So we're going to move into just the first opening part now. As I was planning for the opening of this presentation and antagonising over the concept of decolonising, I found it extremely difficult to frame the concept without taking on first the regimes of colonisation. These regimes have taken a toll on many Indigenous nations and Indigenous peoples through politics of oppression, economic marginalisation, land confiscations in the guise of sovereignty, education for assimilation, and I believe the most brutal, the condemning of Indigenous epistemology. Decolonisation has been conceptualised in many ways, often contesting the regimes of colonisation. So this shaking off of the shackles of colonisation in the process of decolonising is indeed a global phenomena. As a Samoan lecturer in Pasifika Early Childhood Teacher Education in Aotearoa, I've grown somewhat sceptical of cultural constructs that are readily accepted in normative education practice, particularly concepts that are presented as universal to all Pacific peoples based on humanistic ideals and deontological ethics. I raise personal tensions here through questions I continue to navigate when confronting my personal convictions to decolonise education, and I know for those who will speak today, it is an ongoing and relentless task. I want to situate decolonisation now towards the Pacific. And in the words of Tongan scholar Epeli Hauofa, who wrote extensively about the lasting effects of colonising regimes of anthropologic research in the Pacific, particularly the geographical naming of so-called the division of the Pacific Ocean. We know this as Melanesia, Micronesia and Polynesia. Epeli Hauofa contested these geographical divisions of Pacific spheres and the notion of many islands as being small islands. He argues that these Western constructs were not accurate in relation to Pacific Indigenous epistemology. Epeli Hauofa states, if we look at myths, legends, and oral traditions and the cosmologies of the peoples of Oceania, it will become evident that they did not conceive their world in such microscopic proportions. Their universe comprised not only of land surfaces, but the surrounding ocean as far as they could traverse. Why do I start with Oceania? The act of critique by way of Pacific Indigenous thinking opens a cosmic paradigm that affects spatio-temporality of being between human and ocean. This way of conceptualising belonging to Oceania, not only the islands, is significant to me personally. As I operate to decolonise education and Pacific research from a location other than my ancestral lands of Samoa. Born in Aotearoa, having spent the majority of my life here in Aotearoa, I call this my home. I've grown in affinity to my maunga, my awa, and my shared connection with whenua and an ongoing relationship with tangata whenua. Through Pacific research, I'm coming to understand the collective histories of Māori with Oceania and with Pacific peoples. And I wonder how, for many Pacific children born in New Zealand, feel and sense their belonging to both ancestral lands, to Oceania, and Aotearoa, Perhaps it is moana nui a kiwa, the waters that connect and reaffirm belonging. As guest editors of the first year's journal special issue, both Maripa Toso and I could sense the ongoing processual movement of decolonising education engagement within each of the articles and art forms shared within this special issue. Threads throughout the research and personal narratives expressed infant and toddler pedagogy grounded on the idea that cultural knowledge constructs are ontologically situated with and through the various forms of indigenous wisdoms rather than ideals of universality that are often accepted too easily by the masses in education. Decolonising as an embodied and embedded practice of wisdoms is as much about coming to know self in relation to others, past and present, cosmos, land, seas and skies. Calling upon wisdoms from a Samoan Aotearoa worldview, I share this personal narrative that's dedicated to my mother, who is here this evening. It's called Feel My Reach. Daughter, hold my hand, be still, listen to me. These hands of mine have much to say. They will tell you of worlds before and of your ancestors past. Each wrinkle, each line, a collective spirit etched in body and mind. Ah, the stories that these hands can tell. These hands are not mine alone. I have shared my hands in sustaining life. Many years of sowing, healing, gifting, giving, and in pushing strong fists forward, fighting for rights to be heard. So for you in this place in Aotearoa belong, to have your voice known. Oh, the stories that these hands can tell. Take my hand, granddaughter. Let me lead you along. These hands of yours are young and your stories yet to come. Your hands are mine and mine are yours. Use your hands wisely in the choices that you make. Push strong fists forward so the generations to come will feel your reach and know of your wisdom of worlds before and of your ancestors past. Oh, the stories that these young hands will tell. I move along now in the spirit of leaders past. And I want to signal to the onto epistemological contribution of both Māori and Pacific leaders and advocates who influenced the first review of the draft of Te Whariki in 1993. The establishment of Pasifika Early Childhood Education started as community-based services, with the first Pasifika preschool established in Tokoroa. The initial response by Pasifika communities, particularly Pacific migrant women, was to maintain Pacific language, culture for their children as new migrants to New Zealand. This collective effort to initiate Pasifika Early Childhood Education for Pasifika families demonstrated leadership that was socially and culturally constructed and considerate of cultural perspectives, theology and epistemology. The overarching purpose and rationale for Pasifika Early Childhood Education essentially differs from predominant approaches that are evident in mainstream early childhood education. I also signal here the establishment of the Te Kohanga Reo Trust, which was established by Māori leaders and activists who resisted the oppression and marginalisation of kaupapa Māori in education. Thus, Te Kohanga Reo sought to engage whānau, hapu, and iwi in fostering and sustaining te reo Māori me ona tikanga and mataranga Māori for their tamariki and their mokopuna. The launch of each of these early childhood services are interwoven with political and global events and changes in discourse around child development, feminist theory, and particularly decolonising of education for Māori and Pasifika. In a similar vein to that of Kohanga Reo, Pacific Language Early Childhood Services shared a similar vision, maintaining language and culture in education for children, inclusive of indigenous ways of knowing and being, and the provision of a cultural-based pedagogy. Can we consider how specific Māori and Pacific knowledge and philosophy are present in our ways of being and ways of knowing in our early childhood contexts? Are we critical of the tensions that continue between our conceptualizations as early childhood practitioners in our own image of the Māori or Pasifika child? What epistemic frame are we locating our pedagogy? Why do we continue to seek philosophy to inform our pedagogy from far-off lands generated through research of other socio-cultural contexts, when in our very own regions we have Māori and Pacific philosophy and pedagogy that connect us directly to whakapapa, whenua and mauri, for Pacific genealogy, our whenua, our land, our life forces? These concepts are not only situated in relation to the image of the Māori or Pacific child as a social being, these indigenous concepts affirm the child within the collective, relating to place, people, to ancestors, to oceans, to skies, to cosmos, with capacities to think, feel, mind, body, and spirit. I'm just going to close my my talk sharing this poem, which is published in the special issue, and I think it encapsulates te whariki, a curriculum that we live and breathe, probably very much embedded in each and every one of us. It's called Weaving Te Whariki. My hands grasping flax harakeke, the movement of weaving present past, a folding of time and space, our hands grasping threads, embedded and embodied knowing. A child, a mokopuna, a reflection of tipuna in body, mind and spirit, and the fibres of flax entangled in wisdoms, histories and life. How do we weave present, past and future, a whariki for wisdom for a people yet to come? Kia ora. I'd like to invite our Talanoa panel members to please come on up.
Whawhai tere lava mo le awanoa, a vi ia le tua mo le whamanuianga ua maua e le se tasi fo i o alo le atunuu a sunga ia Jacoba, mo le na whaurulunga ia o mamana ia manui au whaiva, whawhai fo i mo le awanoa e whaasoa tuai. I'd like to pay tribute to my parents who are both gone. I think without them I wouldn't have made it this far, and also a tribute to Sasia, who is forever crawling and struggling to try and serve the Onga Amata in New Zealand and also in other countries. And also a tribute to Massey University, who I work for, because they allow me to do what I'm doing now and support our Onga Amata. So before I press the wrong button, I thought about, I had second thoughts about putting my article in, because I wasn't sure whether it was worth the while to decolonize. But to follow up from what Jacoba said, I strongly believe that for us to decolonize, we have to decolonize ourselves first. Pasifika needs to decolonize ourselves first and foremost. And if we do that successfully, then we can actually academize our own knowledge and culture, and then others will try and decolonize themselves to suit our knowledge, to get something out of our knowledge. Otherwise, we'll be forever and ever, amen, decolonizing. With Tamaiti, Samoan culture values children. Now, how can you decolonize that if you were a Pākehā? We are trying to not be peripheral to all the mainstream ideals. And I echo, why do we go overseas and get the practice when we got Māori and Pacific here, who has something to offer to innovate ECE? But we can't now, not with the IELTS now that, you know, they've shut this down. They've shut us down at AUT, they've shut here. How can we ever get to the depth of our cultural knowledge without the language and culture? That is the essence and the existence of our programs when we started. So that's what I mean, we have to decolonize them, but we have to decolonize ourselves, because some of our Pacific people actually agree about what the IELTS is all about. I'm not saying it's not good to have IELTS, but the petition that went through, look, I'm being political now, is to reconsider. They've shut all the trainings, Pasifika ECE, so how can we value our children in the centre in another language? Oh, now I turn it off. So the paper really was to actually say, hang on, New Zealand, we didn't come butt naked, excuse me. We came with our families, which is something that Te Whāriki is quite proud of. We came with tofi, suli, whiangainga, ngafa, whaalupenga. Those are the voice of our children that we came with from Samoa or from Tonga, from the Pacific. And I'd like to unpack those a little. Tofi is your cultural right. You're not born out of an accident. You were born, you were made for a purpose, and you have tofi, you have cultural right. Tofi signifies children's right to their heritage, and tofi is engraved, and it cannot be renounced. For example, the naming of our children. That's why my name is so long, and like every time I introduce, I want everyone to say my whole name, because that's my tofi. Unfortunately, some of our Pasifika children down Gisborne, that area, when I did some PD around there, they changed their names. Oh, my name is Samu, but call me Sam. That's a tofi. Your name is a cultural right by your ancestors. How can you ever decolonize your existence if you start from your name that actually wipes out your connection to your island and your culture? Whanua, I like to pick up with the Sea of Islands that was mentioned today. Whanua, you know the sense of belonging that we go on about? For Pacific, I like to say for Samoan, we don't need a sense of belonging back home. The land affirms your sense of your land affirms your belonging. So for us to be born here and wander around and say, I'm trying to find a sense of belonging to my center. Actually, your land affirms your existence, that you do belong somewhere. But because we live here, we need a sense. I actually wonder and question, do we not know where to belong, that we keep saying that we don't know where our sense of belonging is? But land is your right back home. Someone says in Fijian, Tuere, says, you don't own land. Land owns you. Unfortunately, we don't own any land here. And we can never be indigenous here, because Māori is indigenous. So we need to go back home, claim that land and our right to be indigenous, and bring that here and start decolonising. If we have no connection back home and have some affirmation of where we belong in regards to land, then we'll be forever decolonising. Suli is a blood descendant, which is what everyone, children come to Aonga Amata or ECE services they are a suli, they are a tofi. They have access to the land back home. It is through suli that children have access to matai titles in Samoa. It is the suli that children enter this journey as carriers of their generation's rights or their agents of change. Any book in the library actually confirms that these are the rights of Samoan children, that they have a voice. Nothing. Ngafa and whaalupenga, very similar to whakapapa. Children's place as tofi is seated in the ngafa, your genealogy and your whaalupenga. So all this talk was when that interest of the child concept came out, and we said, where's the voice of Samoan or Pacific children? And I often said, hey, hang on, we do have a voice. We do have a voice. It's just that it's not written or being researched. But our voice are through our songs, our dances, our drums, how we dress. That's our children's voices too.